Our psalm this morning is Psalm 18, which has a note at the beginning of it, a psalm of David, the servant of the Lord, who addressed the words of this song to the Lord on the day when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all of his enemies and from the hand of Saul. And it starts out very familiar, the first few verses. I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield, and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, so I shall be saved from my enemies. So I picked that one because if we get far enough today, we'll get through the last encounters between David and Saul. So we're going to be on chapter 26 of First Samuel. Okie doke. All right. And this is going to be, you're going to be like, I think we already heard this story. Because one of the commentators calls it a doublet. Chapter 24. Remember, that's when the Ziphites, um, advised Saul about where David was, because David's been on the run, avoiding Saul. And so the Ziphites went to great lengths to advise Saul where he was. And that's when Saul went in the cave to relieve himself, and David was hiding in the back end of the cave and cut off a piece of Saul's robe. And then Saul, at the end of that encounter, um, you know, David's like, what in the world do you keep doing this to me? And Saul's like, oh, David, you are more righteous than I, for you have repaid me good, whereas I have repaid you evil. Today you have explained that you have dealt well with me and that you did not kill me when the Lord put me into your hands. For who has ever found an enemy and sent the enemy safely away? So may the Lord reward you with good for what you have done to me this day. Now I know that you shall surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in your hand. Swear to me, therefore, by the Lord, that you will not cut off my descendants after me, and that you will not wipe out my name from my father's house. So David swore this to Saul, and Saul went home. But David and his men, went up to the stronghold, it says. So that's how 24 ended. All right. So it sounds like things are all well and good. But then the Ziphites came back to Saul. So Sarah, you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Would you read through verse 12?
Okay, got it. And the Ziphites came to Saul at Gibeah, saying, is not David hiding out at the hill of Hachilah, facing the wasteland? And Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, and with him 3,000 picked men of Israel, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul camped at the hill of Hachilah, which is facing the wasteland, along the way. And David was staying in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul had come after him into the wilderness. And David sent spies, and he knew with certainty that Saul had come. And David arose and came to the place where Saul had camped. And David saw the place where Saul lay, and Abner, son of Ner, and Saul were lying within the staging ground, and the troops were encamped around him. And David spoke up and said to Abimelech the Hittite and to Abishai, son of Zeruiah, saying, who will come down with me to Saul to the camp? And Abishai said, I on my part shall go down with you. And David came and Abishai to the troops by night, and look, Saul was lying asleep within the staging ground, his spear thrust into the ground at his head, and Abner and the troops were lying around him. And Abishai said to David, God has this day delivered your enemy into your hand, and now let me, pray, strike him through with the spear into the ground just once. I will need no second blow. And David said to Abishai, do no violence to him, for who can reach out his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? And David said, as the Lord lives, the Lord will smite him, or his day will come and he will die, or in battle he will go down and perish. The Lord forbid that I should reach out my hand against the Lord's anointed. And so now take, pray, the spear which is at his head and the water jug, and let us go off. And
Okay.
David,
Oh,
is
yeah,
that
read through
enough?
12. Yeah, read through 12.
And David took the spear and the water jug at Saul's head, and they went off with no one seeing and no one knowing and no one waking, for they were all asleep, for the Lord's deep slumber had fallen upon them.
Okay. So, um, Saul comes out with thousands of men. David has 100. Um, and this time David sends out spies to keep up with where Saul is. And so once again, David is right there with Saul, but doesn't kill him. Um, Takes his sword, I mean his spear this time, and this is one commentator's figured this is probably the spear that Saul tried to kill David with earlier. Remember that? Um, so, um, and then the two guys that are with David, Ahimelech the Hittite and Abishai, the son of Zeruiah. All right, so some folks think that Zeruiah was David's sister. So Abishai would have been his nephew. Remember, wasn't David the youngest in his family?
Yeah.
So, yep. All right. And then Ahimelech apparently is a Jewish name, but Hittite is a general name to refer to Canaanites. So anyhow, Ahimelech was thought to be some kind of foreigner. So David's got his nephew and a foreigner, as his right-hand people, and the nephew goes in there, and is like, "Hey, I can take care of this. I can take care of Saul." And David's like, "No." But then there in verse 12, when it refers to because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen upon them, the Hebrew words to describe that are the same words used going back to the Adam story when the Lord put Adam to sleep and removed his ribs to create the woman. So that deep kind of sleep. So just as a piece of trivia. So any thoughts or reflections on this story and the other story with David and Saul so far?
Seems like a
One of the
repeat.
comment, one of the commentators that I've read made the point, I think last week, that whoever's writing this is really doing a good PR job for David. We're supposed to like David.
Mm.
And, this goes a long way toward that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though
Right.
some of the stories, especially one that's about to come, David's not all that great.
Yeah, yeah. The next story that we're going to do, yeah, it's
Yeah,
we've got three stories in a row here that are pretty interesting.
yeah,
So, yeah, yeah. There's some that are like, are these just two independent stories that there was sort of this general story about David and Saul encountering each other, and two different stories got written up, or did one person write both of them? Who knows? But yeah, so I agree with you, Sarah, that this story and the first one too, um, given a different perspective for David, give us an interesting perspective on David.
yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Susan, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I was blowing my nose.
Okay. Would somebody read 13 to the end of 26?
I'll do that.
Okay.
13 to the end of 20
Yeah, so 13
through
through
the end.
25.
Yeah. Okay. 13. Then David crossed over to the other side and stood on top of the hill some distance away. There was a wide space between them. He called out to the army and to Abner, son of Ner, "Aren't you going to answer me, Abner?" Abner replied, "Who are you who calls to the king?" David said, "You're a man, aren't you? And who is like you in Israel? Why didn't you guard your lord the king? Someone came to destroy your lord the king. What you have done is not good. As surely as the Lord lives, you and your men must die, because you did not guard your master, the Lord's anointed. Look around you. Where are the king's spear and water jug that were near his head?" Saul recognized David's voice and said, "Is that your voice, David, my son?" David replied, "Yes, it is, my lord the king." And he added, "Why is my lord pursuing his servant? What have I done, and what is wrong, and what wrong am I guilty of? Now let my lord the king listen to his servant's word. If the Lord has incited you against me, then may he accept an offering. If, however, people have done it, may they be cursed before the Lord. They have driven me today from my share in the Lord's inheritance and have said, 'Go serve other gods.' Now do not let my blood fall on the ground far from the presence of the Lord. The king of Israel has come out to look for a flea, as one hunts a partridge in the mountains." Then Saul said, "I have sinned. Come back, David, my son, because you consider my life precious today. I will not try to harm you again. Surely I have acted like a fool and have been terribly wrong." "Here is the king's spear," David answered. "Let one of your young men come over and get it. The Lord rewards everyone for their righteousness and faithfulness. The Lord delivered you into my hands today, but I would not lay a hand on the Lord's anointed. As surely as I value your life today, so may the Lord value my life and deliver me from all trouble." Then Saul said to David, "May you be blessed, David, my son. You will do great things and surely triumph." So David went on his way, and Saul returned home.
Okay, so it starts off with David calling out to Abner, who is Saul's right-hand person in this situation, calling out to him and basically admonishing him and his behavior. And then Saul, in hearing this exchange, recognized David's voice, and David admonishes Saul also in verses 18 through 20. Um, and then Saul, the pattern, it's like a pattern now. So Saul is like, "Oh my gosh, I've done wrong. Oh, David, you're so great. I've done so wrong." Um, this is the last exchange, interaction between David and Saul. This is the last one. Um, so before the end of First Samuel, Saul will be dead. Um, so, um, one commentator makes the note that, Saul says to David, "Blessed be you, my son David. You will do many things and will succeed in them." So those are Saul's last words to David. And so the one commentator likens these words, these are like a fatherly blessing by Saul. But it's notable that previously Saul explicitly conceded that David would replace him as king, back there at the end of 24, chapter 24. Um, and so, so thoughts on this interchange between Saul and David?
I like what Sarah said earlier in that, it seems like, good PR for David. And to have Saul say the very same thing and be so um apologetic almost
Uh-huh.
was weird when he just constantly keeps coming back and wanting to get rid of David.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the last sentence in the chapter, David went his way and Saul returned to his place. But things haven't really, haven't changed. David's still out. Still doesn't feel safe. He's still out hiding from Saul. And
He
Saul goes,
remembers he remembers how crazy Saul is.
right, right, right. Yep, yep. So, all right. Anything anybody wants to add about 26?
Well, apparently this is what God expects from David because he put everybody to deep sleep, to allow this to happen.
Yeah, for him to go and get the spear and the water jug. Yeah,
More
because
for
everybody's encamped out around Saul.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because you
You
know
know,
Saul, there's no way Saul is at the edge.
no, it says they were his thousands
There,
of men were camped out all around him.
yeah.
So I can see David sort of tiptoeing around these people that he doesn't trip over anybody. Sort of like in the Old West when everybody's camped around the campfire.
Yeah.
All right. So, all righty. Would somebody like to read chapter 27? So it's how many verses is it? It's just 12 verses. All right. Before you do, I want to talk clarify what some things are. So so just to give you a heads up, David's like, what am I supposed to do now? He's had it up to here. So he goes and hangs out with the Philistines. All right. So that's how bad it is that he's tired of this. And he goes to Achish, to this guy. The guy, Achish is the king right now with them. And we've met Achish before. Think back it was a few chapters ago, and David, and trying to escape from Saul, ended up in Philistine territory and went before Achish and acted like he was crazy. He like laid on the floor on the ground and kicked the bars on the gate and drooled into his beard. And so he and Achish have met before. So, and also it talks about David and his wives. Again, it references his two wives. Remember, there was the last week at the end of chapter 25, Saul came and took David's wife, Michal, who loved David. She was Saul's daughter. But I just wanted to throw in that later in 2 Samuel, Michal comes back, David gets Michal back. So their love affair is not over, theoretically. But all right, so Sarah, I mean Susan, you're gonna read chapter 27? Or
I can do that.
oh, unless somebody else wants to. Oh, all right, go, Susan.
Okay. Um, but David thought to himself, one of these days I will be destroyed by the hand of Saul. The best thing I can do is to escape to the land of the Philistines. Then Saul will give up searching for me anywhere in Israel, and I will slip out of his hand. So David and the 600 men with him left and went over to Achish, son of Makok, king of Gath. David and his men settled in Gath with Achish. Each time, each man had his family with him, and David had his two wives, Ahinoam of Jeriel and Abigail of Carmel, the widow of Nabal. When Saul was told that David had fled to Gath, he no longer searched for him. Then David said to Achish, I have found favor in your eyes. Let a place be assigned to me in one of the country towns, that I may live there. Why should your servant live in the royal city with you? So on that day, Achish gave him Ziklag, and it has belonged to the kings of Judah ever since. David lived in Philistine territory a year and 4 months. Now David and his men went up and raided the Jeshurites, Jerites, and Amalekites. From ancient time, these people had lived in the land extending to Sur and Egypt. Whenever David attacked an area, he did not leave a man or a woman alive, but took sheep and cattle, donkeys and camels, and clothes. Then he returned to Ashish. When Ashish asked, "Where did you go raiding today?" David would say, "Against the Negev of Judea, or against the Negev of Jerahmeel, or against the Negev of the Kenites." He did not leave a man or woman alive to be brought to Gath, for he thought they might inform on us and say, "This is what David did." And such was his practice as long as he lived in Philistine territory. Achish trusted David and said to himself, "He has become so obnoxious to his people, the Israelites, that he will be my servant for life."
Okay.
So he's a murderer and a liar, is what we get from this passage.
Well, that's what we get.
Oh, and a thief, murderer, liar, thief.
Right. But the author doesn't give any indication of what morally the author thinks about David killing all these people, you know. So, but the Ziklag, this land that Ashish gives to David, faces towards Judah. And so it does, and so then in verse 6, therefore Ziklag has belonged to the kings of Judah to this day. Remember, because one of the things that David does is merge together all the kingdoms, so he's sort of starting right there on the edge of Judah, and part of the Palestinian land supposedly has ties to Judah, and definitely because David was ruling that part while he was hanging out with the Philistines. Yeah.
So am I reading this right that David went to Philistine, got his own little town,
Yeah.
and then proceeded to go out and kill Philistines? Aren't they Philistines? Aren't they Ashish's people that he's killing? And he kills them all so that the story doesn't get back to Ashish.
Uh-huh. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's really fighting for Israel.
Yep. Yep.
Let me ask a bigger question. For the Jews at that time, did the Ten Commandments only apply to their dealings with other Jewish people, or did they apply to their dealings with everyone?
This is where we need Harold.
Well, you have Harold.
Yay!
Yay! Okay, Harold. What do you think?
Well, I think the Ten Commandments were intended to apply to all people, but we can't get too hung up on this story of David being literal, true, or it's a fabrication to bring a whole lot of thoughts and a whole lot of history and warp it around to a story about God and a people, and David killing all these men, women, and children. Well, that God kept loving him. I mean, wasn't that more or less a story of a horrible guy that loved God, so God kept forgiving him? So I think the Ten Commandments were meant to be used for all people. But, I didn't live back then, so not quite sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good theological question, Nancy.
That's why I love this class.
Yeah. Ah.
Well, I like it because there are no taboos. We can talk about anything and question anything. And I think that's what makes it a scholarly class. That's what I've always loved about this class.
Same here. Same here. All right. So, anything anybody else wants to add about David hanging out with the Philistines for a year and 4 months?
I think he still probably thinks he's doing what God wants him to do.
Yep.
Because, I mean, in this story, God is saying, go out and kill all of these people earlier on, and he gets so mad that Saul didn't do what he told him to do that one time. He didn't kill
Uh-huh.
everybody, you know. He didn't kill everyone that God told him, kill the donkeys, kill the kids, kill everybody. And here David is going out and killing everybody. And so God said, that's my boy.
That's the other thing about the Old Testament. No matter how bad or what people did, we can blame it on God. God told him to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Huh. Well, so getting into the next passage, though, on that theme of God told him to do it, though, um, God's no longer there's no interaction between Saul and God. And so this next story
Because of he didn't kill everybody. That's what broke the bond between Saul and God when Saul didn't go and kill everyone. At that battle that God said, go out and kill everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So David's probably afraid not to do that.
true. True. Okay. All right. Let me read this next little passage, beginning of chapter 28. Remember, we've already had one announcement that Samuel died. So chapter 28. In those days, the Philistines gathered their forces for war to fight against Israel. And Achish said to David, you know, of course, that you and your men are to go out with me in the army. David said to Achish, very well, then you shall know what your servant can do. And Achish said to David, very well, I will make you my bodyguard for life. Which is kind of, it's almost like, well, yeah, I know what you can do, but I'm not sure if I can trust you. I wondered if it was like, well, you keep your enemies close at hand, close to you, so you know what they're doing. But so that's how that process ends. And then the next verse, and Samuel had died, and all Israel had mourned for him and buried him in Ramah, his own city. So, so now this chapter goes on back to Saul and what's going on with him. So would somebody read verses, the last part of 3 through 14? And this is going to be an odd passage, an odd story. All right.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay.
And Saul had taken away the ghost and the familiar spirits from the land. And the Philistines gathered and came and camped at Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel, and they camped at Gilboa. And Saul saw the Philistine camp, and he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. And Saul inquired of the Lord, and the Lord did not answer him, neither by dreams nor by the Urim or by prophets.
So
And Saul
Urim is
said,
like rituals.
right, where'd you tell me to stop?
At 14.
Okay. And Saul said to his servants, seek me out a ghost wife, that I may go to her and inquire through her. And his servants said to him, there is a ghost wife here at Endor. And Saul disguised himself and put on different clothes, and he went, he together with 2 men, and they came to the woman by night, and he said, conjure me, pray, a ghost, and summon up the one I say to you. And the woman said to him, look, you yourself know what Saul did, that he cut off the ghosts and the familiar spirits from the land. And why do you entrap me to have me put to death? And Saul swore to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord lives, no blame will befall you through this thing. And the woman said, Whom shall I summon up for you? And he said, Samuel, summon up for me. And the woman saw Samuel, and she screamed in a loud voice. And the woman said to Saul, Why did you deceive me when you were Saul? And the king said to her, Do not fear, but what do you see? And the woman said to Saul, A God do I see rising up from the earth. And he said to her, What does he look like? And she said, An old man rises up, and he is wrapped in a cloak. And Saul knew it was Samuel, and he bowed to the ground and did obeisance.
All right, so this passage starts off reminding us that Saul had expelled all the mediums, the ghost wives. Yours translates it ghost wives. This one translates it as mediums, a woman who was a medium. So calling up the spirit of Samuel. Samuel is down in, it was thought in those days that after you died, your soul went into Sheol, and Sheol was down under the ground. So that's why Samuel comes up out of the ground, and the ghost wife calls for him. And she didn't know that it was Saul at first because had changed his clothes, was not dressed like Saul. So, and she's like, Hey, I don't want Saul coming after me. And he's like, Oh no, you're okay. You're okay. So Samuel comes up and Saul bows to the ground in obedience. Would somebody read 15 through 25?
I'll do it.
Okie doke.
Okay. Again, Saul said they said that Saul got rid of all the mediums, but he didn't. Right?
Right. Well,
There's
yeah.
one left.
Well, somebody went into hiding, or he didn't get rid of all
right.
of them. I don't know. There's at least this one left that he knew about, and he's
Right.
not her out.
So Samuel said to Saul, Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up? I am in great distress, Saul said. The Philistines are fighting against me, and God has departed from me. He no longer answers me either by prophets or by dreams. So I have called on you to tell me what to do. Samuel said, Why do you consult me now that the Lord has departed from you and become your enemy? The Lord has done what he predicted through me. The Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hands and given it to one of your neighbors, to David, because you did not obey the Lord or carry out his fierce wrath against the Amalekites. The Lord has done this to you today. The Lord will deliver both Israel and you into the hands of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. The Lord will also give the army of Israel into the hands of the Philistines. Immediately Saul fell full length on the ground, filled with fear because of Samuel's words. His strength was gone, for he had eaten nothing all that day and all that night. When the woman came to Saul and saw that he was greatly shaken, she said, Look, your servant has obeyed you. I took my life in my hands and did what you told me to do. Now please listen to your servant and let me give you some food so you may eat and have the strength to go on your way. He refused and said, I will not eat. But his men joined the woman in urging him, and he listened to them. He got up from the ground and sat on the couch. The woman had a fattened calf at the house, which she butchered at once. She took some flour, kneaded it, and baked bread without yeast. Then she set it before Saul and his men, and they ate. That same night they got up and they left.
Sounds kind of like a Passover meal to me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and it amazes me how she, slaughtered that calf, got the bread made, just like pulled it out of the refrigerator. But her actions towards Saul are very similar to, remember the story with Abigail and Nabal. And Abigail took care of David and fed him to nourish him and help him build his strength back. So it's kind of interesting there. All right. But Samuel's like going back to the vision of Samuel. Um, he's like, why are you bothering me? Um, why are you doing this to me?
I'm busy.
I've got this comfortable life down in Sheol, kind of like, leave me alone. Um, but you did not, but he confronts him and says, you keep going after David. You didn't obey the voice of the Lord. You didn't carry out his fierce wrath against Amalek. Therefore, the Lord has done this to you, has done this thing to you. And you've got the Philistines coming down heavy on you too. So, um, anyhow, and I guess Samuel went back down to Sheol. So what do you make of this passage, the story of Samuel and the ghost wife?
I think it's interesting that the Old Testament confirms mediums and ghosts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Now they are not looked upon they're looked upon very negatively in most of the Old Testament. Um, um, so that they were something to stay away from. But Saul goes, he can't get anything from the Lord, so that's what he does. And when we feel like we're not getting from the Lord what we want or need, what do we do? Where do we go?
Why go to a medium? I don't know about the rest of you.
Don't they have that like psychic you can call on a 1-800 line? I think it's out in California, but they only hire the best. So,
Yeah,
Oh,
but they have a bunch, you know.
well,
Some
there's one over here on Parham Road. She's had a sign out in front of her house for years.
and some people go to the bourbon.
Go to the bourbon. Yep, 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 yep. Or go to the pocketbook.
Hmm.
mhm.
Yep, yep, yep. So in some way, we all fight this battle. We all struggle with this at different times. So at least I know I have at times, you know. So anyhow, so poor Saul. So they're facing battle with the Philistines, and we know that's not going to be good. So